today is the 10th day of the strike by a section of the Air India pilots. 3 Air India pilots who reported sick resumed duty on the 9th day of the strike, which happened to be yesterday. The agitating pilots, however, claimed that the 3 were not their members. Well, hit by the pilots' stir, the airline has put the operation a contingency plan flying Boeing 777 to destinations in United States and Europe. Civil Aviation Minister Ajit Singh has promised to hear the pilots' grievances unconditionally and appealed to them to return to work, saying they had the last chance to revive the almost bankrupt airline. He has also said that the Civil Aviation Ministry will convene a meeting of all the recognized Air India unions next week to discuss Justice Dharam Adhikari report on the human rights issues.
The ministry says the government is also investigating financial irregularities in foreign allowance, hotel accommodation, transportation and visa fee by cabin and cockpit crew. Money was allegedly wasted in 5-star hotels. 3 pilots who broke ranks with their colleagues are set to resume work as the pilot strike enters its 10th day today. No flight cancellation so far, and now the aviation minister says he will call a meeting of all the unions of Air India next week to discuss issues of promotion and career progression. There will be representatives of all recognized unions, which means that the Indian Pilots Guild that is spearheading this strike will not be a part of this meeting. The Delhi High Court also expected to give its verdict on this guild's plea challenging an order that restrains them from going on a strike. The court, remember, called that strike illegal.
I have decided I'm calling a meeting next week of all the recognized trade unions of Air India, because in that recovery plan they have a big stake. We'll discuss them, we'll inform them what's the plan, and also many of them have their promotions have been held up for many years. So I want to have the dialogue, find out what their problems are and see how we can resolve them.
On the day that Air India enters the 10th day of its strike, not very good news also from the Air India's domestic operations. We know now from details that have emerged, from numbers that have emerged, that Air India's performance has actually dropped, particularly in the last month. This, of course, needs to be looked at very importantly in context of the fact that the government has just a few weeks ago cleared a massive 30,000 crore, plan for the restructuring, the turnaround of the national carrier, and that was actually based on Air India, putting together its airline back on the global track, being globally competitive. And of course, that's based on certain factors. Many of them include improving their on-time performance and also, of course, improving their passenger load. But from the figures that we now have, which are DGCA figures, we know that Air India's passenger growth has only increased by 17%. This is in comparison to other private domestic airlines whose share has actually increased by more than 20%. In many cases, like in the case of Jet Airways, 28%. So that's something that Air India would certainly have to work on. Also, the fact that their market share currently stands at the lowest amongst all the private domestic airlines. So you're talking about Indigo, Go Air, SpiceJet, Kingfisher, Jet Airways. All of them seem to be doing better than Air India, which stands at a market share of only 70%. The other thing that Air India should be pretty embarrassed about is the fact that their cancellations are probably the highest. They stand at 5.2%, and that's the highest currently in the competitive sector that they're working in. And of course, the fact that their on-time performance also stands abysmally low. So that's not very good either. And in fact, their highest cancellation numbers stand at 4,051 cancellations. So all of these factors are important to look at, because these are some of the key reasons why a particular passenger chooses one particular airline over the other. And if Air India is planning to pull up its domestic arm at all, they will have to start working on these parameters to ensure that the airline comes back on track. Otherwise, as the aviation minister has many times repeated himself, said that the government cannot keep pouring public money into the airline. And of course, the banks will not be keen to give more money if the airline is not actually pulling up its socks. And these figures certainly show that that seems to be the case. In fact, just one simple indication from the fact that in March 2012, the airline was doing a lot better. In fact, just in 1 month, it seems to have dropped below in fact, further down from SpiceJet. And we're looking at a comparison between the fleets. SpiceJet has got about 30 to 40 fleets, and Air India, of course, has large numbers of fleets. So that's certainly something uncomfortable and certainly something that the management will also have to look into, even as they're stuck between trying to sort out the stalemate between the pilots and the management.